Hello, everyone. It's Monday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is Admissions Live. I'm your host, Nicole Lentine, and today on the show I'm speaking to James Wiseman, Vice President of Enrollment at Carroll University, and Amber Rich, Director of Client Relations at Mongoose, to discuss the use of texting during the admissions process. Admissions Live is part of the Higher Ed Live Network, a series of professional development web shows and podcasts which are always free and accessible to you in the archives at higheredlive.com and on iTunes. Be part of our broadcast by tuning in live and sharing your insights and questions using the Higher Ed Live hashtag on Twitter. You can receive weekly updates with live show dates and times by subscribing to the Higher Ed Live newsletter, which we tweeted out a link to just a moment ago. Today's show would not be possible without the support of Champlain College and M. Stoner. Higher Ed Live is produced by M. Stoner, a marketing and communications firm that works with education institutions on branding, strategy, web design, and more. M. Stoner is offering free 30-minute print consultations this summer. Interested in having your suite of admissions or advancement materials reviewed? We're tweeting out a link where you can learn more and sign up. Admissions Live is also sponsored by Chegg Enrollment Services. Chegg Enrollment Services is hosting a special encore presentation of their webinar, Big Data and Admissions, Leveraging the Cloud to Find and Engage Prospects, on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. This webinar is a great opportunity to learn how to connect with digital natives, build your brand online, capture student interest, and reinforce your message throughout the recruitment process. Go to edu.chegg.com/events to sign up or follow the link that we're posting to on Twitter right now. So, without further ado, I want to welcome both of my guests, Jim and Amber. So, Jim, do you want to kick us off and share a little bit about your history in higher ed?
Sure, Nicole. Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here today. Yeah, I've worked in higher ed enrollment management services for over 30 years now at 3 different institutions. I've spent the last 22 years as the Chief Enrollment Officer at Carroll University here in Waukesha, Wisconsin. It's a suburb of Milwaukee. We're a private institution. When I started, we were 1,200 students, and today we're 3,500 students.
Awesome. All right, how about you, Amber?
Thank you, Nicole. Thanks for having me on today. Well, I spent the past 12 years in college admissions, actually working with you at Champlain College. And I recently, about a year ago, made the switch, started working with Mongoose. And I had done some texting while I was at Champlain, so it was great to be on the user side, and now I'm on the other side. And I also recently just got my doctoral degree in education, so I've been very busy, and I'm delighted to be on the show today.
Yes, I know you've been putting in some serious work, so congratulations on that accomplishment. It's pretty exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm excited to have you both on, and I think it's nice to sort of have voices on either side of this conversation. And I think texting is such an interesting frontier in admissions. You know, it's something that not a lot of colleges are doing, and even if they are doing it, you know, it's tough to figure out how to do it well. So I'm excited to kind of learn a little bit more about why we should be in this space. So, you know, like I said, it's a new communication tool. Why do you think it's so important to include it in the communication process with prospective and with admitted students? And I'll jump to you first, Jim, and then Amber, if you have anything you want to add.
Yeah, you know, I have 2 daughters, so all you have to do is sort of sit at a dinner table with your daughters to realize how important texting is with young people these days. And I think it's a vital way, I think, of communicating. That, you know, we've said that it certainly has a place and a role in our communications with students. I do think if my daughters are in the examples, and I think they're fairly normal at times anyway, I think, you know, they do want to protect that space. So I think that's one of the issues is, you know, they want to make it sort of a personal conversation. They don't want to be advertised to necessarily using texting. So that's why I think it's such an interesting way to communicate and has huge potential. It's just figuring out exactly how to do it, though.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you bring up 2 really good points. You know, it's just everybody's using it. We see students, I mean, like, we constantly have our phones on us as well as adults, but students constantly texting with each other. But there is an interesting question of sort of where the line is crossed. So yeah. It's a great point. Yeah. How about you, Amber? Anything else to add to that?
I just know when I was on the college side that it was really difficult to reach students, you know, placing phone calls, leaving messages, and I'm guilty myself sometimes of having a full voicemail box, and sometimes we wonder if students even check our emails. So I think texting can be great because it is a way they communicate. So we know they're reaching. We know we're reaching them when they respond. So it's, you know,
definitely
satisfying.
Yeah, it is. It's nice to be able to send out a message and get that response right back. I feel like you don't always get that with email, and I do feel sometimes like students are avoiding my phone calls. So it's nice to know that you're being seen and being kind of, your message is getting seen right away, and it makes it a little less confrontational, I think, for them too.
Exactly.
So Jim, I really am excited to hear about, it sounds like you've worked really closely with Mongoose to develop a custom developed texting platform. So I'd love to hear more about, why you decided to go this way and sort of what that's going to look like for your upcoming year.
Yeah, it's been I've thoroughly enjoyed working with Mongoose. It's been a wonderful partnership. I think I'm just going to keep my Tuesday calls to Dave just to sort of check up on everything, But we got into this because so a couple years ago I said, we need to text. So we went out and we said, well, let's just use our phones and we'll just text. Well, that was sort of a disaster. It was a disaster because it was impossible for our counselors to be able to manage their lists because the students were coming in and coming out, and it was always changing. The phone number issues were problems, and so we said, okay, well, we need a platform to do this. And we started looking for platforms, but all the platforms were basically these bulk sends. So we have a campus day coming up, and an administrator would bulk it out and send it out. And I think that was contrary to what I wanted because I saw my kids and how protective they are of those texts and how personal they want it to be. I said, no, we need something that's personal so a counselor can say, hey, Sally, we're missing your ACT score, or Johnny, we'd love to have you come and visit now that you're accepted, or congratulations on your acceptance. And there was nothing out there. And so Amber had sent an email out. She sends out all the time to all of us, and I sort of got interested, and Dave and me eventually made contact, and we said, okay, Dave, can you make this so that it can manage the list for us, which is a huge deal, and I wanted it to be managed so that each individual counselor had their own list, not the entire office list. So every counselor has their own sort of list. And as students opt in or opt out, or their status is dead end or whatever, they fall off the list, everything's updated. It's real easy for the counselors to use and manage. And so that's where we all started, Nicole, and it's just it's blossomed. It's been better than I ever envisioned, and the counselors all of a sudden are just so excited about using this.
That's wonderful, and I love the idea of making it that much more intentional and individualized, because it can be so easy to just sort of, do these mass text campaigns and hit a bunch of people, but the response rate isn't necessarily what you want it to be, and it's not really reaching the goal of ideally what you're opting into this texting communication, I would think, to be able to have that one-on-one conversation more. And so I like how you've approached it and how you've thought about breaking it down counselor to counselor. So what was your starting point when developing this? Did you develop it alongside your communications plan for the year, or did you approach it kind of from an entirely different angle?
Yeah, sort of together, although what we do at Carroll, we use a little unique system in that we basically track what we call quality contacts. Mm-hmm. So we have a system that generates and says that counselors need to make these quality contacts periodically, and there's sort of so many each week that they need to make. A quality contact for us is two-way communications. Mm-hmm. So if it's two-way communications and we designate the campaign, missing application materials, congratulations of your acceptance, FAFSAs, net price calculators, visits, all those types of things. And so we basically tied it to that. And so for opting in, the first thing it generates for the counselors, it says, you can text this student about this campaign. And then they basically then go through that process. I have a feeling when it's all said and done, we will probably double the number of quality contacts, which is huge because, you know, we can say all the fancy stuff that we do in admissions, but the reality is students buy from and parents buy from a relationship that's built on trust and respect and trying to find the best fit, as that's what we do in admissions. And this will be, I think it'll be a game changer in terms of the number of quality contacts, the relationship building that you can do.
I love that. And I love the message. Actually, I want to see if I can pull up the kind of top of your inquiry card that I heard you guys are using to encourage students. So I'm going to screen share for a minute here. So bear with me, viewers. And I'm going to pull it up here. So check yes to get important personal messages about your admission status and application timeline sent directly to your phone. No spam, we promise. I love that. I think it makes a difference, you know, to be able to say it up front, like, we just want to help you. We promise we won't spam you. This is what we plan on doing. And let me pull up. So do you want to kind of talk about, you know, sort of what this conversation that we're seeing and kind of, I guess, your vision, I think, talking into your vision of what you were speaking about before, this two-way conversation?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually the back of that same. We have another card that we hand out to every student who visits. So this is the back of that card, and it basically allows them to opt in. So you're looking at actually the conversation is based off of, you know, showing people like a transcript or the FAFSA code or the visit days, you know, individual visit stuff. So things like that. We have about 15 different campaigns that we use for texting. And I think it's just going to be a really beneficial tool for us in terms of making contacts. You know, just like us, you know, we get our cell phones and the phone numbers pop up, and if you don't recognize the phone number, the chance of getting through to a prospective student is probably zero, you know. So with texting, I think we have a chance. They've opted into it. They want to have it. So I think if it's a personal, individualized texting system, I think it'll work great for us.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love the use of emojis in there, too, I have to say. But that's wonderful. And I think I think with the way that admissions is changing and higher ed is changing, it does feel sort of kind of like students are constantly getting bombarded by all these schools and these messages that are trying to come off as personalized, but they're not. But you're really getting to the heart of building that relationship, and I love that. And I love seeing that in the way that you've developed that card. It's great. Let me just pull back up. So what are, you know, you talked a little bit about your goals, but what are some of the broader goals that you have in this process, and how do you really plan on measuring success in approaching those goals? And then after you answer that, I'd love to have Amber jump in and talk a little bit about, you know, how other schools that use these tools have measured their success. But Jim, do you want to speak to first kind of what you envision for that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So we envision that we can get 1/3 of our inquiries to opt in. And we think we can get 50% of our accepted students to opt in, and we know, we're pretty convinced that if they opt in, they are some of the more interested students, and we expect this about a 3% increase in overall yield, and we think we'll double the total number of quality contacts made by counselors in the course of a given year. I think it more than pays for itself very easily, very quickly. And I think it's a great use. You know, a lot of what we do in enrollment management these days, it's all about time as a valuable resource in terms of our counselors' time. You know, and sitting at the phone making 50 phone calls a night, but you get 3 people to complete a phone call. I think we can do during the day. We can be texting people. We can be talking, you know, doing that, or we can do it in the evenings. We can text with parents if we need to, so I think it's just going to increase the number of quality contacts significantly.
Definitely, I agree. Amber, do you want to speak to those statistics, and do you want me to share the slides that you had as well?
That'd be great, Nicole.
Yeah, I will pull those back up. Hold on here.
We thought we lost you for a second there.
I'm here.
Still there. Hi, Amber. All right, and let me pull up some of these stats for you. There you go.
Sure. Thanks. So I'm going to use some stats from one of our clients, and this is from the prior iteration of our platform. They are a 4-year private located in Texas, and this was from fall 13, so we're awaiting some updated numbers, but we'll use this. So we know there are a lot of soft inquiries in recruitment. So with this school, 7.1% of their inquiries had opted in, so of all their inquiries. It might not seem like a lot, but as we move through the funnel, if you will, 32.3%, so about a third of their applicants had opted in to receive text updates. And further, as you move even deeper into the funnel, 41% of their deposited students had opted in for text updates. So this tells us a couple of things that we can actually, I have another slide as well.
This one? There you go.
Yeah. So this is another way to look at the same data. When we look at the inquiry to app conversion, overall, they had about a 15% yield. And when we look at the number of students who had opted in to receive text updates, that number jumps up to about 68% of those students had opted in to receive text updates. So what this tells us is that the students who are opting in to receive text updates are highly interested, and texting allows these students fewer of them to fall through the cracks.
Definitely. Well, and I think in a day and an age of, measuring demonstrated interest, this is a huge point that you can pay attention to when you see if your students have opted into texting. Yeah. And I'm sorry.
Well, no, it was interesting because Dave gave me these numbers early on, and I was like, okay. So we run a predictive enrollment model that actually predicts which students are most interested in us at the point of inquiry. And we put it into our statistical model to see if it was going to be a factor, and it's a huge factor. So it basically helps us identify which students are most interested when they opt in.
Definitely. Amber, did you want to speak to this last one?
Yes, absolutely. So with this same school, overall, from their inquiry to deposit yield, from their inquiry pool, they had about 2% of students end up depositing, which is pretty typical. But when you look at the number of students who had opted in to receive text updates, 11% from their inquiry pool had opted in to receive text updates. So you can see how valuable that is.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Whoa, making the screen go crazy here. There we go. So thank you for sharing some of those statistics, because I think a lot of schools that are trying to figure out how to, if they want to work it into their plan, they want to see that there's a demonstration of success. So I think statistics like that really tell a great story about being able to kind of identify these students ahead of time and be able to really pay attention to them throughout the process and keep that communication alive through a way that they've already shown works for them and they prefer. So I think that tells a great story. So thank you for sharing those. So how frequently, let's get into the nitty-gritty of it a little bit here. How frequently do you plan to text, Jim? Or I guess you spoke about it a little bit because it's really going to be dependent on your counselors, right, in your process. So maybe there's not a set,
Yeah, so Nicole, different times a year it'll be more than other times, as you know. I mean, because it's an automated system for us that tells them when to send something, so it's when those campaigns come up. But I anticipate in the fall, I think an individual counselor will probably be texting just about 100 students a week. That's a one-way text going out, and then if they're responding, obviously you're going to multiply those numbers significantly.
Yes.
So for us, I think it'll be a pretty active environment in terms of their texting.
And you said, it's going to be a little bit of deadlines and reminders and your typical kind of communications that go out throughout the year, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, so we put all, the counselors are going to put the text number on their business cards, on their websites. So, they're going to make that text number really out there for them. And so I suspect we're going to get a lot of parents, we're going to get a lot of students that are going to be texting us back. And I think it's so awesome because with Mongoose, you know exactly. You've got a track of the entire conversations you've ever had with them. You know exactly where that student is. So it's not someone texting you out of the blue and you're going, who is this again? You don't have that problem with Mongoose because it's all right there for you.
Yeah, well, and you bring up, actually, you jumped right into kind of the next question I was thinking of asking you is, how does the system sort of work? I mean, not the nitty-gritty of it, but, Can you talk more about sort of how you're tracking all this and how it links up with your system?
Yeah, you don't have to worry about the nitty-gritty with me. I'm sort of like fly really high. So that's Dave and the IT staff at Carroll. They do all the real work. I just sort of think of stupid things to do. So basically what happens is every night our ERP system talks to Mongoose, and we send them a list, updated list of who's active and who opted in, and by counselor. And then Mongoose loads it, so that's there for them for that day. And when the counselor sends the text, they actually pick the campaign, and it loads an interaction into our ERP system for that particular student. So we know the counselor then texted them, and it leaves it open for a set period of time. And if the student responds, then it closes it by entering another interaction that says the student corresponded, so that becomes a quality contact. All automated. There's no counselors entering data, wasting time with that. It's all taken care of for you. It's the way of the future. I mean, I'm already saying, okay, we need to do email like this. We need to do everything we can so that counselors aren't stuck sort of entering data that they're spending their time contacting students. Yeah. So I think it's state of the art. I think that's the way the future will be.
I have to agree with you, because I think it's, I think this is a conversation that comes up a lot in the admissions realm, is it's, there's so many more things we need to do all the time, right? To be able to stay ahead of the curve, to be paying attention, like part of my role here at the college is working with social media. My job, that part of my job wouldn't have existed 10 years ago, or 15 years ago. And so we are constantly adding new things in there. So I really respect the fact that you're trying to find ways to make sure in the back end of it that you're not adding even more work in by bringing in this tool that ideally is going to save your counselors some work and some time. I think that's a smart way to do it, and it definitely is sort of the way of the future, as you said. So that's pretty cool that it works so closely with the system. I love hearing that, and I think others out there that are considering tools like this, I think it'd be comforting to hear that it's not going to add a tremendous amount more of workload to you. And I know there are other different businesses that people can go with out there along with Mongoose, but I like hearing about how open they were with working with you closely to try to make sense, to make a plan that works specifically with what you wanted to do.
Yeah, they've been so fabulous. I can't thank Dave enough, and Amber. They've just been so great to work with, and it's been so much fun. It's been a great project. They bring a lot of great insight in, and I agree. I believe this coming year our counselors are going to basically be using text more than any other form of communications that we use. I mean, you'll integrate it in with all of our direct mail and all the other stuff, but I think the texting will be by far the most productive, and it's the most efficient way of contacting students.
Yes, definitely, and I'll have to put a reminder on my schedule to bring you back on in a year, and we'll talk about how it all went and how it worked. And
I love it. That'd be fun.
I'll make sure to do that. We'll bring you back on next summer. So,
okay.
Well, and I want to remind people as I have you both on, if you have questions for Amber or for Jim, please feel free to use the Higher Ed Live hashtag, along with being out there on Twitter. It's right in my name, right down there underneath my last name. So feel free to use the Higher Ed Live hashtag if you have questions about this, if you have questions about the way the product works, the texts that are going out, any of that good stuff. Yesterday when I shared the topic, I got some great feedback on Twitter, and somebody brought up a really good question talking about sort of privacy concerns and opting in. We're really getting into this day and age of trying to knock out spam, right? We've tried to deal with it in our mailboxes and our inboxes. There's a lot of rules for it. Texting, it's still kind of up in the air, but there's some things that are happening. So, Amber, can you speak a little bit to that about privacy concerns, spamming, and stuff like that?
Sure, Nicole. I'd be happy to. So there is some federal legislation that limits a brand's ability to, in a sense, spam a consumer's phone with the use of auto dialers and mass text messages. However, nonprofits are exempt from the legislation, so we know legally, you know, you're in the clear being in higher ed if you're a nonprofit. I think the more important piece is, you know, how the student perceives it. You know, you don't want to seem like spam to the student, or that's going to hurt your brand more than help your brand. And so that's why we collect the opt-in. So again, as institutions, you're covered, but you just want to be a benefit to the student. So again, it's best practice to get the opt-in. But you're right, it is a changing space, you know, with the legislation. So.
Yeah, thank you for that. And do you or Jim or both of you want to talk about what the opt-in process specifically looks like for Carroll University?
Sure, I can. So we had to rethink it a little bit because we're so excited about the tool. We had to get as many people to opt in as possible. So, but for us, it's just what Amber said. You know, we want them to make this their preferred way of communication. So we want them comfortable with it. So we'll only go to the ones that opt in or say they give us their approval. So we have it on our inquiry card as we've seen it. We have it on our applications. We have it on their portal as they get as an inquiry that they can automatically check a box and they're opted in. We pretty much have it everywhere. Anytime they visit, all of our coaches, athletic forums have it now. Everywhere we put it. And so we basically been collecting those over the course of the summer with our fall 16 class, and the numbers are going good. We tell them, you know, in a variety of ways, like we showed about the no spam, we promise. You know, I'm thinking of maybe some T-shirts, right? You know, you can do the whole thing, but I think it's going to be just fine. I think students that choose it, it's going to be great, and if they choose not to, hey, we'll communicate a different way.
Yeah, you kind of are sticking with the communication space that they're most comfortable in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, you know, another thing that's going to happen in the future is that I think you find that communication space and that's the way you communicate. You know, instead of saying, wow, this one's a direct mail or this is this, I think you communicate the way they want to be communicated with. So if they're not opening their email, okay, don't send email anymore. Let's do something else, right? So I think that's the way it would go in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I do want to give a quick apology to somebody tweeted out there that they couldn't see the slides while we were talking, so that might have been my fault. So I will make sure to share the slides after we're done talking today so you all can see those statistics we were talking about earlier. Amber, since Jim is still kind of new to the kind of doing the texting plans and he hasn't gotten to see the results yet, can you talk about kind of what the response rate has looked like for other colleges?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Nicole. Well, we were working, I have a story, I guess. We were working with one of our clients, and you know, we sent out a message. It was to their students who had applied but were missing some information. So they sent out a message that said, you know, thank you for your application. At this time, we're missing your SATs. Please send them as soon as possible. And, you know, no one really wrote back, but they did take action. But the client, you know, was waiting for a response. So sometimes it's in how you word it as far as the responses. And so the next time we sent out a message, we changed it a little bit, and we said, you know, please respond, 1, if you're still interested, 2, if you're not. And from that campaign, they saw about a 30% response rate. So I think sometimes it's, you know, what are your objectives with each individual message? And most of the time also we see that students respond, about 95% of students will respond within the first 20 minutes. That's also a question we get sometimes. And as far as numbers and statistics, probably we'll have a lot more. So would love to come back to and talk a little bit more in about a year, some of those numbers and how folks are doing with the tool.
Yeah, I'd love to do a check-in with you both because I think, the way it's been used in the past and the way that it sounds like you'll be using it at Carroll, Jim, is like it's really changing the approach, I think, in a very interesting way. And I think other schools have thought about moving in that direction, but not a lot of schools have done it efficiently. So I'm really excited to touch base with you both in a year and see where things end up.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm really excited about this project.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, and like I said, it makes a lot of sense in the way that we are trying to communicate with students. So, Amber, I had another question for you, just because you've seen the results kind of down the road from some other schools. Do you have any tips or suggestions for schools or counselors that maybe are starting to use texting tools? Do's and don'ts, general feedback like that seems to work or not work.
Sure. Yeah, I have two tips to share. When we first started, when Mongoose first started doing texting about 4 years ago, it was maybe trying a little too hard to be kind of cute. So maybe you'd send out a text that said, you are, using the letters you are instead of the words you are, or something like that. And you are sending it out from a college. You are communicating, and so we've kind of gotten away from that, and clients are using more regular language as opposed to the short little icons. And then another piece is we used to encourage schools to start out with the school's name. And now it's more, hi, this is Amber from Carroll University. Gets a much better response because the student knows, hey, there's a person at the end of that line, and they're much more likely to respond to you, to save your number as a contact in their phone, and they know that they have a friendly admissions person on the other end who's eager to usher them through the process, as opposed to, they're not sure if it's an actual person on the other end. So definitely making it more personal has been highly effective.
Awesome. It makes a lot of sense. I think students today are just so immune to that, like we said, that mass marketing kind of approach, that being just a person and having that kind of human approach is going to make a drastic difference. It's going to make you stand out that much more. I know we've seen that in other campaigns that we've done, social media campaigns that we've done, and I know it will hold true with texting as well. Amber, I very briefly am going to just have you actually, we already talked about the ROI. Jump back into it for too long. But I guess I'm trying to think if there's any are there any additional pieces that you just want to share that you've seen from past schools that have used the texting approach that maybe we didn't cover already as far as ROI statistics or anything? I know that's kind of a vague question, but...
No, that's okay. I think just to really echo what Jim said, it's about being efficient with your resource, and your biggest resource are your people. And I just know when I was on the admissions side, you could spend, a few hours making phone calls and not really knowing if you're getting through. And with texting, it's nice because it can be, as Jim said, during the day. You can set up your campaigns. You could set them all up in the morning, and they could go out in the afternoon when kids are supposed to have their phones on them, after school. And like I said, they usually do respond, 95% of them within the first, 20 minutes or so. So it's a great way to use your time and use your time wisely in the way that students want to be communicated with. So I guess as far as ROI goes, I would just say that, it's a method that works. And so I think, Jim has some great goals for his team, all of his statistics. I think it's just about efficient use of resources. That would be what I would add.
Awesome. Thank you.
I want to mention too. I think another thing is besides just the normal admissions funnel, I think there's potential in search. I think we've exploring that really hard with Dave and Amber. I think there's huge potential there. I think some of the search response rates will be really impressive when you include that piece. And then of course I think there's a huge potential with retention and student success offices using it for continuing students. So I think we're just sort of on the very beginning of all this and how it's going to work within higher ed.
I completely agree. Well, I know I attended a session I was at Higher Ed Web in October, and there was a presentation where they were talking about, communications with current students, with incoming students, and they were saying, be in the space where they are. It should make sense that if you have a question for housing, why shouldn't you be able to text housing and say, I can't get into my dorm, or, whatever the case might be. It makes sense on such a broader scale. So I completely agree with you. There's such potential for all the way from, you took the SATs, you checked off, that you're interested in schools in these areas, all the way straight through to, why couldn't we use it with alumni as well?
Right.
It really fits into this idea of kind of that lifetime engagement. And, yes, maybe the person you're texting changes, and so that's sort of a kind of background thing to be thinking about. But I agree with you. I think, it's the way we're already talking with each other. Why shouldn't we be thinking more and more strategically about how we can incorporate it into the communications from universities?
I think the other thing was I was at an interview last week, and I talked to the student, and I said, hey, yeah, you got to sign in for the texting. And they go, oh, yeah, I'll definitely do it. I love the fact that you guys won't send me real long texts. So maybe they're tired of the real long emails that some of us send. So
that's a good point. Yeah, we are known in the higher ed world for getting a little bit wordy, so maybe it's not a bad thing to try to rein it in.
That's right.
Yeah, it's the same thing with thinking about how to, tweet out when you're the admissions office. So yeah, it's
limit them to 140 characters in their texts.
Yep. I love it. Yeah, it'll rein us in a little bit and get to the point really quickly. I love it. Awesome. I guess, we're kind of wrapping up on questions. I'm double checking Twitter, but it's quiet over there. Well, Dave asked us to talk a little bit more about student search. So do you have any particular ideas for how you want to use it in student search, Jim?
Well, Dave and me are going to talk about this, but yeah, I do. I think, and he's had experience and Amber has had experience, I think there's schools that send out variable print brochures with specific codes, and they say, text college X, and they use a short code, and they say text, whatever short code, and then so it basically goes in their brochure, and when they text, then Dave can link and they can link it back to, so we know, so we don't have to ask for the information, we already know which person has it, and we can just move them over. I think that's going to be so huge with search. I think it'll make a big difference in the response rates of search.
I'm really excited to see your response rates. I think it can kind of be disheartening as a counselor to see the tiny little response rates that are typically achieved through search. So I'm really excited to hear how that works out for you. I think you're onto something pretty special here. So I'm saying it now, and my producer will be so happy to hear this that I'll have a show in the books for next year already, and we'll bring you guys back on and talk about where things ended. That's great.
Perfect.
Yeah. Any other kind of advice that you want to put out there, Jim, or Amber? I think Amber, you gave some great advice, but Jim, anything else that other colleges that are considering going this route that you want to make sure you encourage, or things they should be thinking about? Anything like that?
Well, I don't know. For us, I think the big thing was just identifying the kinds of campaigns you use with texting. And you can save the counselor. It's so great because of the system. You can save the campaigns and use them as templates for the next time you need that same campaign. So I think you have to sort of think about how are you going to use it? What's the campaigns that you're going to use it for? That I think is really sort of a first step. And then just making sure that you have it set up or somehow set it up so you can track response rates, and so you can track back and say, we've sent out these many texts, this is how many respond, and then this is the result at the end of the year.
That's a great idea.
When I'm on the show, I can tell you the results. So that's the only reason I'm doing it, Nicole. I'm not doing it for any other reason.
Just to get back on Higher Ed Live and talk about it.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
I love it. Well, I will save a space just for you, I promise.
Really desperate, huh?
Yeah, no, but it's. I think it's just like we said. It's a new frontier. It's a new thing, and it's hard to get really great statistics out there. I mean, Amber, you shared some great ones, and I think they're incredibly encouraging, but I think this approach is just, it's fairly new, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. So
I think another huge advantage of this platform is that they can use it on their phone, they can use it on their iPads, they can use it at their desktop, and you can get text notices, email notices, so that you can do it however they can get notified when a student texts them in multiple ways. And it's so user-friendly, so I think that's huge because, you know, then counselors can sort of work on demand if they want to, because they can get it at home or they can get it at work on their desktop. So it's so perfect for what a counselor has to sort of experience.
Oh, definitely. That's it. It makes such a difference just to be able to know that you don't have to be in the office to do these kinds of communications. It makes a significant difference. So, wonderful. Well, thank you both so much. I think this is just such a cool topic, and I'm so excited to see where things land. And I'll look forward to your return next year. But in the meantime,
talk to my agent Amber.
Yeah. Well, and in the meantime, I want to encourage anybody out there who's viewing the show right now or views it in the archives, please feel free to reach out to any of us. Amber, you are at Amber2003Rich, right?
It's
on Twitter?
Amber at mongooseresearch.com.
Yes, I was talking about your Twitter account. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yes. But so, yeah, Amber at mongooseresearch.com?
Yeah.
Awesome. And then, Jim, I saw that Carroll University has a Twitter account. It didn't look like you had one, but I don't know if you're willing to field questions if people have them for you.
Yeah, you can either go through Amber or they can email me at jwiseman, like 3 wise men at Christmas, at carrollu.edu.
Awesome. I'm sure you might have some follow-up questions from people, or like I said, I'm happy to field any questions as well. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Jim and Amber, for being on the show today.
Thank you.
So much.
And thank you, as always, to our program sponsors, M. Stoner and Shag Enrollment Services. Coming up next on Higher Ed Live tomorrow, we have a very full week this week. Tomorrow, host Ryan Catherwood speaks with Christina Bolotescu, Natalie Ellers, and Elizabeth Muse about membership versus support models for alumni engagement. Get reminders about this and other great shows by subscribing to the Higher Ed Live newsletter. Browse the archives at higheredlive.com or subscribe to the Higher Ed Live podcast on iTunes. I'm Nicole Lentine, back next month with more Admissions Live. Thank you.